speak now to John Graham, a former US diplomat who worked at the American embassy in Libya. John, welcome. Let's start just by, our pleasure, let's start by picking up on that point that was just discussed there about the legality of this. The Pentagon's using what it calls the authorization of use of force that came from fighting Al-Qaeda. They're using that to fight ISIL in Libya. What do you make of the legal grounds for carrying out airstrikes? Is it sufficient?
I think it's irrelevant. I think what that gentleman said is probably exactly true. I don't dispute what he said in the least. But these things are made, they are great power moves. What was the justification? What is the justification for Russian jets bombing Aleppo, for example, or American jets and French and whatever jets bombing other parts of Syria? Yes, there are resolutions taken. I'm sure, as I said, the gentleman is quite correct as to the legalities. But as an old professional, or one who's been involved in a lot of violent acts, this is not what drives nations when they do things like this. We are looking very hard for ways to keep ISIS from getting a serious toehold in Libya. ISIS has basically established safe havens in Libya, just as the Taliban did in Afghanistan a decade ago. And so we're trying to wipe them out. It's confusing and chaotic enough in Libya, but if Libya also becomes a safe haven for the Islamic State, then it becomes even worse for us. And in fact, I would say worse for Russia and worse for everyone else who's trying to eliminate this scourge.
Now, when the topic came up of notifying Libyan authorities about the strikes prior to them happening, this is what the Pentagon spokesperson had to say. Let's have a listen.
You mentioned that the Libyan authorities had knowledge of the strike, but the government's very divided. Which authorities were notified?
Again, Jim, I'm just going to leave it that this was conducted again with the knowledge of Libyan authorities, and we believe this was consistent with domestic and international law.
Fairly evasive. I know things are complicated in Libya, but why not just name the authorities?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, John. I'm just saying it's a very evasive answer. Surely it's not that hard just to name the authorities that were notified.
I don't know what this poor fellow could have told you, and the fact of the matter is that there are dozens of authorities in Libya. I have no idea who they talk to. There is an internationally recognized government in Tobruk in the east, which is basically anti-Islamic. I suspect that's who we, quote, talk to. But there's also another so-called government based in Tripoli, which is more Islamist in nature. I doubt we talk to them. There are 6 to 8 militias operating in Libya. Did we talk to any of them? Some of them are pro-Islamist, some are anti-Islamist, and most of them are fighting within themselves. Then, of course, there is the tribal system in Libya, which was very apparent when I worked there as a diplomat a long time ago. It's complete chaos, and a lot of it is tribally based. So on top of all these politics, on top of Sunni Shia, on top of Islamist, non-Islamist, you have an enormous, complicated tribal network. So who are the authorities anybody talks to get, quote, permission to get anything done in Libya? The whole question is, well, it's, I don't know what the right word is. I was about to say a little silly, but I don't want to be disrespectful to colleagues in the Pentagon, but it's strange.
Well, John, what about the UN's great hope, this new so-called unity government? The UN's backing them, it recognises them, but they haven't yet been approved by Parliament. If that happens, if they get their cabinet into position, do you think they could have some kind of effect and improve the situation? Well,
let's not forget, the UN doesn't exactly do what people thought it would do in 1945. The UN at best is can provide effective peace monitoring, but it is not a peace-building organization. You may get permission from the parliament, and the only recognized parliament is that from the government in Tobruk in eastern Libya. There's another parliament in Tripoli. Then there are all these other players that we talked about just a few minutes ago, tribally based, political based, whatever. So the idea of the UN being able to cobble together all of this and make it all work in some kind of agreed fashion is way beyond the UN's capacities. You need some stronger force, some much stronger incentive than the UN can supply to take these 6, 8, 10, 15 different players and cobble them together to work together to create a working nation. Now, what does that mean? Do you bring back a straw man? Oh, what happened to Gaddafi? This is the problem when you decapitate nations like Iraq or Syria or Libya. You risk chaos. And once you have that kind of chaos, the UN is pretty powerless to stop it with military force.
John, I'll just have to wrap things up at that point, though. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for shedding some light on this very complex situation in Libya. We're speaking to John Graham, former US diplomat in Libya.
Thank you.